Hello everyone, how are you doing? I hope everyone is doing good. So welcome to another video of reproduction in plants. In previous video, we were discussing about double fertilization. In this video, we are going to cover what is pollination and what are the different types of pollination. We're going to see different agents, living agents, non-living agents that will be responsible for carrying out pollination. So whenever we talk about sexual reproduction, make this thing clear in mind that after pollination, the plant is capable, the plant will reproduce. Okay, so pollination is a very important key factor for sexual reproduction happening in most of the angiosperms that we are discussing throughout this chapter. So let's just first define what is pollination. So as you can see over here, simply what we mean by pollination is transfer of something from plant 1 to plant 2. Yes, so it is what is it getting transferred. You can see over here what is this part of the flower. It is the anther. So transfer of anther, transfer of pollen grains. I'm so sorry. The anther consists of these pollen grains which are known as male gametes. So the male gametes are transferred from one flower to the another flower, either of the same plant or of the another plant. Either the flower is on the either the same flower also. Sometimes the pollen grains might get transferred to the same ovule, same egg of the same flower, but that is very not favorable, and it is not most oftenly occurring type of pollination that we will see as we go forward discussing the different types of pollination. So simply, what is pollination? Transfer of pollen grains from the anther. Okay, the anther, the pollen grains can be picked up by a biotic agents, that is a living organism, like here you can see a bee, or it can be through wind or air, or it can also be through water also, and it is transferred to the stigma uh, of the gynoecium. So this whole process is known as pollination. Transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. So you have to remember these two keywords, that is from the anther to the stigma. Okay. So now we move to the types of pollination. That is the very first type, which is self-pollination. Okay. So let's begin with the first type of. So the pollination is classified broadly into two types, that is self-pollination and cross-pollination. So the number first that we will discuss is self-pollination. Now from the word you will be able to get an idea that what do we mean by self-pollination, wherein all plants having flowers completely rely on pollination method for reproduction. Okay, means what? In self-pollination, the pollination of a flower by pollen from the same flower. Okay, so basically this is the point that I was discussing previously, that for reproduction to happen, pollination has to happen. Okay, so all the flowering plants will do pollination for reproduction to happen. Without pollination, sexual reproduction through flowers will not take place. Okay, now first type of pollination is self-pollination. What is this? Self means pollen grain of the flower, okay, of the same flower getting transferred to the stigma of the same flower. Okay, pollen grains from the anther of the same flower. You can see there is only one flower over here. So the pollen grains from here are getting transferred to the stigma of the same same dimension of the same flower. Okay, or from another flower but the same plant. So this might be to another flower which might be located somewhere down, but the plant will be the same. So the plant is the same, the parent plant is the same, the flower can be the same or the flowers can differ. So this is what we mean by self-pollination. Transfer of pollen grains from anther to the stigma is pollination, but when it is the same flower or when it is another flower but of the same plant, then self-pollination comes into picture. Next, what is cross-pollination? Exactly opposite to self-pollination. So when pollen grains are transferred to a flower from the different plant. So you can see, uh, let's assume this is plant 1 and flower 1. This is plant 2 and flower 2. Okay. So the anther, the pollen grains from the anther getting transferred to the stigma of another plant, and obviously the flower of that another plant. So this is what we mean by cross pollination. Okay, so plants are different. Self pollination, plants are same. Making sense? Okay. Now let's move a little bit deeper into more types of pollination. So you have now specific terminologies that will come into picture. The first terminology is autogamy. Okay. So self-pollination, technically we call it as auto. Auto means self. Gamy means, a fusion of the gametes. So the pollen grains sticking onto the stigma, then the pollen grains move down the stigma, they go towards the ovary, towards the ovule, and then the fertilization, union of the male and the female gamete will take place. So autogamy, auto self-pollination. So what happens in autogamy, self-pollination? Usually because it is the same plant or same flower of the same plant. So the offspring, the new ones that come out that are reproduced, they are mostly genetically identical to their parents. They are what? Genetically identical to their parents. Example, one of the plants like the Vatana plant or the pea plant, this type of plant shows self-pollination. Another type of pollination is geitonogamy. What is this? When cross pollination, pollination of the different flower produced on the same plant. So when pollination takes place between different plants, but they are on the same plant. So it is a subtype of self-pollination. We can say we give it a specific term known as geitonogamy. So autogamy is the same flower, same plant. Geitonogamy, different flowers but of the same plant. Okay. Then moving to another terminology that you need to know, xenogamy. So earlier slides we saw two broad classifications, self and cross. Now in the self you have two terms, specific terminologies, autogamy and geitonogamy. So when the flower is also the same, plant is also the same, we call that particular type of pollination autogamy. When flower is different but the plant is the same, so different flowers of the same plant, then specifically the scientific terminology that we give is geitonogamy. And simply lastly, xenogamy is the last one, the next type of pollination, which is cross pollination. Sometimes we also call them as outbreeding. So this is when pollen grain gets transferred from one flower to the another flower of the another plant. Actually, this might be sometimes of the same species or different species also. So now the species of plant can be same or can differ, but definitely the plants will be different. Definitely both the plants will be different completely. Okay, so pollen grain from one flower deposited on the stigma of a flower of a different plant. They may belong to same species. So make a note of all these three terms and their definitions. Slight difference between these two, and then this is the cross pollination. We don't have to get confused. The definitions are asked in the exams, most commonly asked in the exam. So we need to learn and know these definitions. Okay. Now let's move to what are the two main types of agents that are involved in uh, carrying out pollination. So there are two agents, living and non-living. So living, non-living are known as abiotic, okay, like wind, water, and the living, which are known as biotic. Obviously, all the insects, the birds, snails, bats, then butterflies, bees, all this will come in biotic agents. Okay, let's begin with the first type, that is anemophily. Now, what do we mean by anemophily? Phily stands for liking. Phily stands for liking or preference, you can say, and anemo stands for wind. So pollination brought about by wind. Okay, so all the plants that do anemophily, they are all wind pollinated. So almost all the crop plants are wind pollinated. Okay. Then example, you have wheat, rice, corn, rye, barley, oats. All of these are pollinated with the help of wind, abiotic agent. So how these flowers are, I mean, we have to see what are we going to do is we are going to define the particular type of pollination and the characteristics of those flowers. So plants which carry out pollination through wind, so how will be their flowers look like? So their flowers will be small. Okay, their flowers will be very small and insignificant. They will not be very attractive, very colorful and all like. So that is what we mean by inconspicuous, insignificant, like very small flowers. They will have no color because wind is a non-living agent. Then they will have no sweet nectar. They will have, but they will have fragrance. Sorry, but also they will not have fragrance. Sorry. So without any nectar and without any fragrance, small size, no color at all. Okay. Then their pollen grains will also be very light in weight because through wind they have to be carried from the anther of one flower to the another. So they are light in weight, they are dry. Okay. They are light in weight, they are dry, and they are producing very large amount. Okay, because through wind it has to be carried from one place to the another, so the number has to be good because most of the time these pollen grains go wasted. Okay, so the flower has to produce more amount of pollen grains, and the stigma to which onto these pollen grains will stick will be feathery. So they will have some feather-like appearances to trap the pollen grains. Okay, and the stamens and the stigmas are exposed to the wind. To air currents means wind. So that is how the pollination will take place. So this is how the feathery stigma will look like. So these feathers-like structures will be there. Okay. Yes. So this is how pollination maize plant. So maize plant does pollination with the help of wind. Okay. Next, we move on to hydrophilia. You can pause the video, you can take note. If you have any doubt, make a note of it and you can ask me in the live class. Hydrophilia, again, liking. What are they preferring or what are they liking? Hydro. Hydro stands for water. Yes. So, most all the plants which are aquatic in nature, so they will do pollination through hydrophilia. Almost in some 30 genuses of plants, they carry out pollination through hydrophilia. Mostly they are found in monocots. Okay, the monocots are the ones which will produce only one type of cot, only one cotyledon. So dicots having two parts like chana. Then monocots are having only one cotyledon. Example, some examples that you can remember is Zostera, Vallisneria, Ceratophyllum, etc. These are some of the plants that will carry out pollination with the help of water. So how will their flowers look like? Their flowers will be again water, abiotic agent. So flowers will be small, insignificant. They will have no nectar. They will have no fragrance. Okay, because this is all not required for the water to carry the pollen grains from anther to the stigma. Okay, perianth and other floral parts are unwettable. Unwettable means what? The parts which will these are the floating and the floral parts. So the flower will not be submerged inside the water, just like you can see in this picture. So the top part, that is the flower, the whole flower and the supporting pedicel and the perianth will float on water, and the rest of the plant will be underwater. So this will be unwettable. Okay. So that is what we mean by perianth, and other floral parts will be will not be submerged inside the water. Here the pollen grains are long and they are unwettable. because due to presence of some sticky substances onto it. Okay, so it is not like though pollination is happening in water condition in the aquatic system, but the plant, the flower has adapted in such a way that it will take care of getting wet, getting moisture absorbed, and all that, all those things. So pollen grains over here will be long and they will not absorb moisture because they have a sticky waxy coating onto them. That waxy coating is known as mucilage. So it will not allow water content to be absorbed by the pollen grains. Now in hydrophily, there are types: hypohydrophily and epihydrophily. So let's just see the first type, hypohydrophily. Okay, hypo stands for above, and sorry, stands below, and epi stands above. Okay, so when pollination will occur below the surface. So in the previous slide we discussed the general pollination which will occur in water. Now there are plants which will be completely submerged under water. Yes or no? You might ask me, all the flower, there are many plants whose flower does not float on water. There are many plants which are completely under the water, underground, underwater. Okay. So in that case, hypohydrophily, pollination through water, but when all the plant system is below the water surface. So hypohydrophily will happen in that case. Okay, what are the adaptations of these flowers? Pollen grains are heavier than water. So the density of the pollen grains, that is their mass to volume ratio, will be more than water. Water ka density is 1. So comparatively, it will be greater than 1. Because if it is equal to water or it is equal less than water, then it will float on water. It will not be able to get transferred from one place to the another. Okay, so it will be heavier than water, so that it is, it comes down, it sinks down, and while it is coming down, while it is sinking down, it is caught by the stigmas of the female flowers, and that is how the water currents will cause the pollen grains to stick onto stigmas of the female flowers. So this is naturally happening under water. So one main characteristics of the flower doing hypohydrophily, pollen grains, the density will be heavier. They will be heavy than that of water. Example you need to know is seagrass, that is Zostera. Okay, and what will be the characteristics of the pollen grains? They will be long, they will be ribbon-like, and they will not have any spikes or thorny structures like the outer covering, which we discussed earlier in the structure of the pollen grain, that is exile. Okay, so pollen grains will be long, they will be ribbon-like, and it will be without exile. Now moving to the next type of pollination occurring with the help of water, epihydrophily. Epi is standing for above water surface, hypo below, epi above. Just you can see in the picture. Okay, so above the surface of the water. Yes, so you can see the plant is under the water, but you can see the stamen, the male reproductive part is floating onto the water, and the pollen grains will be released. And similarly, the female flower you can see over here, and through floating with the help of the water currents, they will go and stick onto the stigma of the female flowers and bring about pollination. Okay. Yes. So from here you can see the pollen, the stamen which are releasing the pollen grains, and these pollen grains floating onto the top of the water, they will cause these grains to stick onto the stigma. You can see over here also the female flower, the male flower over here, and you can these male flowers will produce the pollen grains and which will go and stick onto the stigma. So this is happening at the water surface. Above the water surface, or at the floating water surface, epihydrophily. Making sense? Next, we move to the next another type of pollination. This is brought about by, you can see the picture and you can have a guess. Yes. So what are these? Entomophily. These are your insects. So you have mosquito, you have fly, you have butterflies, you have other smaller creatures. So everything will come into this category of insects. Okay, so you have rose, jasmine, cestrum, etc., etc. Other different types of plants, usually those which have very bright colors and very sweet nectar. Those plants will be pollinated by insects. Okay, so the flowers will be very big, very large. They will be nice, attractive, showy, and mostly the flowers will be very bright colors. Okay, they will also produce sweet smell, sweet odor like rose and jasmine. You know the smell of it, and they will have nectar glands also, because these insects will come over there not to pick up the pollen grains. They will come there to have their food, to have their nectar. Okay, and as and when they are having the food, they happen to collect or pick up the pollen grains from the anther. So the pollen grains, they sort of stick to their body. So when they move from one flower to the another, they just, you know, they fly and they roam here and there. So they happen to pick the pollen grains from one place and they happen to deposit somewhere else, to some other plant, to some other flower, and that is how pollination naturally by insects will happen. Okay, so the flowers will have all these characteristics. Then stigma, that is the female part which will receive the pollen grains. Either it can be rough or either it can be sticky, depending upon the type of flower or depending upon the type of plant. Pollen grains but definitely will be spiny in nature so that they properly go and stick onto the stigma. Okay, so they have a spiny appearance. They also have a yellow sticky substance called pollen kit. So usually plants which show pollination through insects, they produce pollen grains which are spiny in nature and which produce some sticky substances known as pollen kit. Okay, so this is pollination with the help of insects. Now we move to the pollination by looking at the picture. What do you know? Birds. Yes. So by birds. So pollination by birds, or ornithophily. So you have sunbirds, hummingbirds, which will try to take nectar from the flower, and in a way, naturally, they will happen to pick up the anther in their beak and transfer from one flower to the another, from one plant to the another plant. And these flowers will obviously be birds. Say pollinate ho raha hai, to brightly colored. They will be big in size. They will be colorful, attractive, showy. Okay, they will have. They will secrete profuse and dilute nectar, because the amount of nectar that is taken by the bird as food will be more. So these plants, these flowers will produce a lot of nectar. Okay, again the pollen grains here will be sticky and spiny, and usually birds do not have a sense of smell. Insects have, birds do not have. So these flowers will not have much fragrance. So they will have no fragrance, but they will be brightly colored. They will be bigger. They will make a lot of nectar. Pollen grains will be sticky and spiny, more or less similar to the characteristics of entomophily. But here the fragrance will not be there. Insects में fragrance is there. The flowers will have fragrance. Yeah. Next type is chiropterophily. You can look at the picture and have a guess. Pollination through bats. So bats are also responsible for carrying out pollination, and one plus point is that they can transfer pollen grains over a larger distance, sometimes several kilometers. So imagine one plant species in one area and another plant species in some another area can be pollinated with the help of such animals. So since bats are not so visual animals, they are usually active in night. So the flowers will be dull colored, but they will have a very strong fragrance. So they will be not be very bright and colorful, but fragrance will be very strong. And a lot amount of nectar will be secreted by these plants because bats are coming to the flower not for pollen grains. Again, I'm mentioning they're coming for the nectar, for the food, for the nectar sucking. Okay. So flowers produce large amount of edible pollen grain also. So one specific and one interesting characteristic of these flowers, of these plants, is that the pollen grains that these flowers are producing can be eaten by the bat. Okay, so you have kadam tree, baobab tree, sausage tree. These are the trees examples which are pollinated through bats. Okay, make a note of it. If you have any doubt, uh, write it somewhere and you can ask in the live class. So this is the assignment that you will do after this video. That is, you will try to describe 3 devices or 3 types basically by which cross-pollination is encouraged in angiosperm uh, and by avoiding self-pollination. So do this assignment. In the next video, we will discuss a very shorter video regarding pollen and pistil interaction and a bit about artificial hybridization. So stay tuned. We'll see you. We will discuss these 2 topics in the next video. Till then, thank you. Take care. See you. Bye bye.